everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff.
Yes.
International Women's
Yes. International Women's Day.
Women's Day. And
is
so
today.
The subject of today's conversation is Women Knights of History.
Yes.
And
after 150 episodes, I was struggling to come up with a new topic today, and then I saw it come across my news feed that, it is International Women's Day. Well, that seemed entirely appropriate then to see what nightly activities did women get up to, nightly with a K, get up to in the Middle Ages.
Yes. Well, and I think
around.
We're going to have to start with talking about our definitions. What era are we talking about? How are we defining nightly, a night? We're going to have to talk about all of that. So before we do, what beverage do you have this evening?
Well, also, I think somewhat appropriately, I am drinking a brand of bourbon called Penelope.
Oh, yes.
And it is a toasted. The company that's making it is experimenting with different levels of toasting their barley and or their corn. I guess it's a bourbon. And different levels of charring the barrels and different level. There's a whole series of these things with different chars, different toasts, different aging, and the record of it is kind of a mystery. It's a medium, whatever that means, char and a number 4 toast, and aged for 9 years. So it's the only one I've got. So I don't know if there's a char 1 through 4 or 1 through 6.
Interesting.
But it's quite nice. It's not the super caramely sort of bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
It's lighter, almost. It's got the sweeter notes of a bourbon, but it's lighter, like a Canadian whiskey almost.
I just saw something interesting about the difference between bourbon aging and other whiskey aging, like Scotch aging, and why they age different lengths of time and what it has to do. And bourbon, after a certain point, it won't extract anymore.
Right.
From is interesting. Yeah.
So, and it's nice.
Good.
Very nice. What are you fortifying with this evening?
Well, I'm trying a new cocktail. New to me, called a Broadmoor, and it's a whiskey, green chartreuse, rich simple syrup, orange bitters, and finished with an orange twist. And the reason I chose this is that the whiskey I'm using is Grace O'Malley Irish whiskey.
Aha.
And Grace O'Malley, we'll talk about.
We will.
Was she a pirate? Was she a knight?
Freedom fighter?
Yeah, well, and so that's why I think we need to start with definitions, but okay. Grace O'Malley. So
okay, Grace O'Malley. Well, I'm wondering that green chartreuse isn't an not an oxymoron, is redundant.
No, there's yellow chartreuse.
Is there really? I was not aware of that, because, the word chartreuse is usually a shade of green.
Yes, but it's also the name of it's a very specific kind of herbal liqueur.
I'm aware, and the only ones I've ever seen were green.
Yes, there's also yellow.
That's the name.
And green has been very difficult to come by because it's like made by 3 monks in a cave somewhere, and they only make a certain amount, and it's gotten more in demand, and so I have a bottle of green and a bottle of yellow chartreuse, And so I did just used, it's just called for a third of an ounce of it
Ah,
in this, so I don't use it very much. I'm not much of one for strongly herbal liqueurs and stuff, but this called for it. And actually, I ended up increasing the amount of whiskey in the recipe because it was too sweet and too herbally.
okay. All right.
So
Okay. So
okay,
definitions.
definitions. So
My when I proposed this in my mind, my definition was a an armored warrior going into battle. What historical documentable instances are there of women putting on armor and fighting alongside men in hand-to-hand combat battles?
okay, so then what are you considering armor? Because not all cultures at all times had
Okay,
the stereotypical white armor.
the armor, whatever was considered the armor, the cultural battle dress
Of the
of
time.
whoever, yeah, the time or the place.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be, 14th century brigandine and chainmail and a helmet.
Okay.
Whatever was the accepted warrior armature
Okay.
that was born into battle.
So that's the first question. And then is so leading,
Not necessarily.
but
If,
leading and directing, they're in armor, leading and directing isn't, or do they have, because there were times when the commanders, generals, and so on were there in armor and didn't necessarily make it into the battle, but they were still there.
agreed. And my initial definition was in armor or, armed, fighting alongside
Okay.
other armed warriors.
Well, I think that's kind of limiting, but
It is. I grant it, and I don't want to discount necessarily women who commanded or led from the rear, which certainly men did of the period, who
yes,
armored up and stood at the back and directed troops.
yes, yeah,
So I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying I'm looking for instances of women going into battle,
okay,
not observing and directing the battle, going into battle.
okay,
So
yeah, okay. Not always the smartest thing to do.
certainly not, but however, in the instances I have found, it was only when necessary. It was an absolute necessity for them to arm and go into battle,
Okay.
which to me demonstrates the intelligence of women in battle.
And recognizing that there are many undocumented instances of
Yes.
women in armor fighting alongside men that we don't know their names, we don't know anything about them,
Yes.
but
That is
we do know from historical accounts, archaeological evidence that certainly happened.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying that here's the only instances that it ever happened. There are like you say archaeological evidence, and there are plenty of historical anecdotes of finding women on a battlefield after they were dispatched or whatever, and their sex was not known until their armor was removed, and that's
Right.
those are actual historical
Okay.
anecdotes.
Now, we also need to talk about legendary versus
Yeah,
documentably historical from evidence. So, for example, the story of Judith and her maid getting Holofernes drunk, and then she took his sword and cut off his head, and then they snuck out of his camp, and his army ran away because they had defeated. They cut off his head. It's a subject of many medieval
Absolutely.
paintings, many medieval paintings.
Yep.
Great story, but you would say,
That's
well,
certainly not knightly. That is not what a warrior, that's not a warrior's act. That is an assassin's act.
I think we could argue about that because
No, if you and if we had to fight,
yeah,
and instead of fighting, I sat you down and got you drunk and cut your head off in your drunken stupor, that doesn't make me the superior warrior. It makes me a murderer.
yes, but they no.
However, tactically,
not murder.
might
It's not murder because it was war, because he was
all right.
going to kill all of her people.
Oh, okay. Tactically wise,
Yeah.
not knightly.
Okay. Okay. So what about Boudica?
The
The
only references we can find of her are legends. Many. I don't remember exactly the. It's like more than 100 years after the Roman. The first document I can remember. It's like hundreds of years after the incidents being related when it's written down.
well, she's in the written about. Let's see, 100 years later, I think.
That's what I kind of
I
remember.
think
About 100
historical
years.
sources, three Roman authors. Let's see, 30. There's one about 30, 40 years later, and one about 50 years later.
Oh, okay.
So Agricola wrote about her just under 40 years later, after 40 years. So, so there's, that's one of the problems with ancient histories.
Yeah.
They were as much works of elaboration, if not outright fiction. But she existed.
Yeah, I absolutely recognize her existence as a queen, as a military queen.
Yeah.
I'm just not I can't be absolutely convinced that she fought side by side with her army.
I think it does make me think that another episode talking about the difference between legend and myth and history and
Sure.
fiction. Those are that would be useful.
Yeah.
We even know some historians we might have on as guests. So
we do.
yeah. So Grace O'Malley, who I mentioned here, who this lovely Irish whiskey is named after. Again, she was 16th century. She was a leader, a sea trader, maybe a pirate. The English considered her a pirate, but what's the difference between a pirate and
a privateer?
Privateer? Well,
privateer is a letter of marque from a government.
Well, yeah, she parlayed with Queen Elizabeth
after she acted as a pirate, though, right?
I think is she a pirate? I don't, or is she a knight? And that's it. Again, it depends on definitions, right?
Well, when you say to someone, think of a knight, what do they look like? Besides being a male, how do you describe a knight?
Was Sir Walter Raleigh a knight?
He was knighted.
Ah, and that we know people in our organization who have been given the
Yes.
accolade who
And he is
neither
also
of us consider to be anything other than mannequins for the accoutrements of knighthood.
well, that is my point exactly. Sir Walter Raleigh, this is after the period of armored knights in battle is 100 years gone by the time he is.
Well, that's what we started with, is that we're talking not about the modern era when people have been knighted for public service, service to
Right.
the kingdom, so on.
And that's what Raleigh was knighted. Well, I mean, he was a
Yeah.
naval military leader also, but this is the age of pike and shot, not, men at arms going into hand-to-hand combat so much.
So was Mad Jack Churchill? He's the one who went
He's
into
out of period. He is not, and he didn't wear armor. He carried a rifle and a sword
and a sword and a bow
and a
and
bow and
arrow,
arrow.
and he wore standard military dress for his era. It's modern era, but I mean, you mentioned standard military era.
Okay.
What about the Agoge, the women warriors of the Dahomey Kingdom of Africa?
Yeah, I would
The inspiration probably for the Dora Milaje of the Black Panther story movie.
probably.
There was a movie made a few years ago called The Woman King about them, fictionalized, elaborated, historically some inaccuracies. But it's true there was their general. What was her name? I don't remember the name of the General Naniska. That she existed. They
Sure.
and okay, and they had. I mean, the very much the inspiration, I think, for the Dora Milaje.
Yeah.
I think she was a knight. She went into battle. I think her warriors were knights. Her unnamed female legion.
Yeah, I certainly can fall within my
Okay.
definition.
Not
Now,
maybe
so
what a lot of people would think of as a knight in armor, but yeah, damn,
yeah,
absolutely. So
but let's get to women who actually fit my narrow definition because there are some.
okay,
Now, every list I found included at the very top Joan of Arc
yeah,
and Eleanor of Aquitaine.
yes,
And I don't, but to me, they do not fit my description
okay.
because neither of them, they both wore armor and they both marched with their troops, but neither of them actually entered into battle.
Didn't Joan enter?
I, I, I can't find an anecdote of her raising a weapon in battle.
Okay,
But, however, and a lot of these come from the 11th century, which I don't know what that means exactly, but Matilda of Canossa, born in 1046 in Lucca, Tuscany, Countess of Tuscany, remembered for her role in the conflict between the papacy and the Holy Roman Emperor. Let me see if I can find the.
okay,
So she was a very. I mean, this is a noble woman by every definition. And there's a lot of members of her family being seized by kings and fighting back and forth. Where's the? In 1052. 2 years later, 1054, Henry seized Beatrice and Matilda as hostages and took them to Germany, but the following year he became reconciled. Well, maybe this isn't one of the ones I meant to save. I'm not. She was involved at every turn in this war with not leading, funding troops and directing them, and then doing a lot of the peace negotiations surrounding them. One more. This is a 13th, 14th century Joanna of Flanders, or Jeanne la Flamme.
Ah, yes.
Jeanne de Montfort, also it's known.
Fiery Joanna, right?
Joanna of Flanders.
Yes, but La Flamme, meaning not of Flanders, meaning the fiery.
Yes, but the French have her as Jeanne.
Yes.
Jeanne.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wife to Jean of Montfort.
Yeah, well, Joanna, Jean, same.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's just a translation.
Yeah.
Let's see. Joanna fought most of her life in defense of the rights of her husband and later their son's dukedom of Brittany. She challenged by the House of Blois during the Breton succession. It's all part of the 100 Years' War.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna announced their infant son was the leader of the Montfort faction at one point, leading her army into Redon and capturing the city. During the siege of Hennebon, Joanna took up arms, dressed in armor, defending the town, urging women to cut their skirts and take their safety into their own hands. Badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
When she saw that Dubois had left his rear camp mostly unguarded, she gathered 300 men and rode out to the attack, burning supplies and destroying tents, thus earning Joanna the epithet of Jeanne la Flamme, or, as you said, Fiery Joan.
Yeah.
Let's see. Once the Blois army realized what was happening, their forces cut Joanna and her troops off from their retreat. The Bishop of Lyon tried to persuade Joanna to surrender to Charles, but she refused, as she had seen English ships in the harbor, courtesy of Edward III of England. Charles was forced to retreat. She sailed to England for more reinforcements, was intercepted on the way back by Spanish ships under the command of Louis of Spain, who was Charles's ally. In a hard-fought battle, the sailors and knights grappled in hand-to-hand combat as Louis's men attempted to board Joanna's ship. Joanna fought in person with the heart of a lion, quotes from Froissart.
Okay.
And in her hand she wielded this is still part of the quotes, with the heart of a lion, and in her hand she wielded a sharp glaive, wherewith she fought fiercely. Okay. So now a glaive to us is a specific type of weapon, but I think in period it could have just meant any, like a sword-bladed weapon.
Okay.
But eventually the English forces beat off Louis' ships and sailed on to Vannes, a coastal town in France. War broke out in England. When war broke out again, the English allied themselves completely with the House of Montfort. Joanna contracted a serious mental illness. I'm not sure what that was in confinement in England, never returning to France, and dying in 1374. It is believed she may have influenced Joan of Arc, another female military leader 50 years later. But Jean Froissart, French author and court historian, has her as having the courage of a man and the heart of a lion.
Okay.
So that is right smack in the definition that I was shooting at.
Okay.
There was another. Let me think here.
I'm not sure if Katerina Sforza actually
Well, again,
Yeah.
worthy of
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
gathering and funding and leading,
Yeah.
not fighting.
Okay.
Um, it seems like there was another 11th century
Matilda of
Gaita of
Canossa.
Lombardy. Hmm?
Matilda of Canossa commanded numerous campaigns.
Yeah, but that was just when I was reading a minute ago, and I didn't see any mention of her actually joining a fight. Gaita, Sicil Gaita of Salerno. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. She's often called Gaita, Gaita.
Mm-hmm.
1040 to 1090. So she lived to 50 years old in the 11th century. That's pretty amazing just by itself.
Sickle Gaita. Yeah.
Sicil, right? Yeah,
Sickle Gaita. Yeah.
but she's sometimes just called
As they
Gaita.
continued to run, she grasped a long spear and charged at full gallop against them and brought them to their senses. They went back to the fight.
Yes,
Her fellow
exactly.
soldiers were running, and she,
She said,
yeah,
"Get the fuck back in
yeah,
there."
yeah, exactly.
and
Uh, she took
and her
part
husband
in
was
commanded sieges and was more involved in her husband's military activities than was previously known. They,
right,
yeah,
and her husband Robert Guiscard was a famous French knight,
yes,
Frankish knight. Really, by in the 1100s they were Frankish still.
yeah.
She frequently donned armor to fight alongside or lead troops in battle. So, once again, born into the Lombard ruling family of Salerno, famously described by Byzantine historian Anna Komnene as like another Pallas, if not a second Athena.
Oh,
So, the Battle of Dyrrhachium, as you mentioned, she rallied fleeing troops by riding toward them with a spear.
that'll do it.
It works for me every time. Deeply involved in state affairs, with her name appearing alongside her husband's in charters, often referred to as a duchess, a
There,
masculine or
there's
neutral.
a reason. I remember reading this that there was a reason when generals stopped being at the front and started being at the back in order to keep troops from fleeing.
From retreating.
From yeah. um, uh, Jean Hachette,
Ah, yes.
Jean the Hatchet, essentially. Jean Lasne,
Lasne.
Laisne.
Okay.
In 1472, Charles the Bold led his Burgundian soldiers against the French town of Beauvais. When they attacked the town's walls, the citizens of Beauvais, including the women, fought them off in hand-to-hand combat. One lady, Jeanne, grabbed a small axe and fought off the Burgundian standard-bearer, which rallied the defenders. She was renamed Jean Hachette by her fellow citizens in honor of the victory.
Hatchet Jean.
Hatchet Jean. And there is a statue of her in Beauvais, in the town of Beauvais, with a hatchet.
Nice.
Yeah. And the standard, she's got a hatchet here, and in her other hand, she's got the standard she took from the standard bearer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Another, let me see this. This is 7th century, and not European necessarily, but Kala bint al-Azwar, a Muslim warrior in the service of the Rashidun Caliphate. Major role in the Muslim conquest of the Levant, and fought alongside her brother Dirar. She has been described as one of the greatest female soldiers in history and was a companion of the Prophet Muhammad. Born sometime in the 7th century to
Was
a
the
chief
start
of
of the Islamic conquest of
yep,
and wars of conquest.
one of the chiefs of the Banu Asad tribe, daughter of one of the chiefs of the Banu Asad. Kala was well known for her bravery in campaigns of the Muslim conquests in part of the Levant, which Spain. She fought side by side with her brother in many battles, including the decisive Battle of Yarmouk in 636 against the Byzantine Empire. On the fourth day of the battle, she led a group of women against the Byzantine army and defeated its chief commander, and later was wounded during her fight with a Greek soldier. So that's it. That's the kind of
Yeah.
figure I'm talking about here.
What you're looking for. Okay.
So
Well, there were orders of knighthood that there was an order of Hatchet.
yes,
That was founded for women, and the order of the hatchet. And I don't think it was because of Jean Hatchet. I think it was.
which is too bad because that would be
That would be cool. I have an order of knighthood named after you.
yeah.
But I think that I wonder, and this I don't know, if women were associated with using hatchets, glaives, and so on rather than swords, because swords were considered.
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Or I don't know that.
Women just picking up whatever deadly implement they could.
There were also there are many instances in many cultures of people using what were farm implements.
Oh yeah, sure.
Weapons, hatchets, axes, scythes,
Bill hooks.
yeah, and those became weapons of war when necessary.
Yeah. Well, there's. I mean, the Order of the Garter, established in 1348 in England. The very first order of knighthood established in England. In 10 years after its initial establishment, Queen Philippa, Margaret Beaufort, and the first appointee was Queen Philippa in 1358. So this is not the, social type of appointment or recognition of service type of thing. That was serious. Although I think at that point they were still lady companions of the order. They weren't fully knighted.
Okay.
And I think it was a recognition of support of the order more than anything else.
The French,
lady companion of the Garter.
The French did have words, just a word for the wife of a knight and a word for a woman who was a knight, and they were different words. There is in the mid-12th century, Moorish invaders besieged the town of Tortosa, Spain. The town's menfolk were already off at a battle, so the women of Tortosa set up defenses. They dressed in men's clothing, picked up weapons, and held their town with an array of swords, farm implements, and hatchets. In the aftermath, Count Ramon Berenguer of Barcelona founded the Order of the Hatchet in their honor. And
1149?
In mid-12th century.
1149.
1149. The Count granted the women numerous privileges and immunities. At all public meetings, women should have precedence of the men. They should be exempted from all taxes. That all the apparel and jewels left by their dead husbands should be their own. It's not known if they fought in any battles other than defending Tortosa.
Right.
The group faded into obscurity as its members aged and died out. So, cool.
And there's also, I'm recognizing here, the 14th century Breton chivalric order, the Order of the Ermine. But again, cultural honor for contributions to Britain. Well, actually, that is revived in the 20th century. The 14th century chivalric order to honor service and notable for admitting women and non-nobles to be part of the order. So,
In Italy, the Order of the Glorious Saint Mary, founded by Loderigo Dandolo, nobleman of Bologna in 1233, was approved by Pope Alexander IV in 1261, was the first religious order of knighthood to grant the rank of militissa to women. The order was suppressed by Pope Sixtus V in 1558.
Freaking popes, man, always coming in and messing with stuff.
Yeah. So, so, so examples, certainly.
Right. So we can say that there were women knights of orders.
Yes.
And we recognize that probably unrecognized women fighting in armor, that absolutely happened.
Yes.
I was just looking for a specific, here's a real named woman who put on armor and fought and was recognized for that fighting. Fought bravely.
Tomoe Gozen.
Gesundheit.
An Onamusha, a female samurai.
Oh, okay.
There's a question as to whether she actually existed. But,
okay, so another legendary figure.
Yes, but she's certainly, there are varied accounts of her, and Gozen is not a name but a title, usually translated as lady, but it can be as lady or lord. Tomoe Gozen. In after in 1184, she's known for beheading Hondo no Morishige, later leader of the Musashi clan. She presented his head to her master Yoshinaka. So, varied accounts.
Yeah.
She's known for having defeated others and retired to become a Buddhist nun.
All right. Well, lots of male knights retired to become, to take orders.
I was
monks.
just talking with someone about William Marshall, and he had promised at a young age to become a Templar.
Yes.
And when you become a Templar, you give all your possessions to the order.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're supposed to become celibate and all that others.
Yeah. So he lived a very long life, children and possessions, and he, in the accounts, the many accounts of his life, of which I have, I think, everyone that's been written on a shelf, on a William Marshall shelf, including the novelization of his life, which is not great.
I've got that one too.
He's known for making a good leave taking, for doing it on his deathbed in the proper form, according to, he made sure to distribute his possessions and leave them, and to appropriately in his wealth and distribute things and so on. And then after he'd given everything away, just as he was about to die, he became a Templar.
Right.
So he had nothing to give them, which I thought that was great.
That's loophole of the century, right there.
Yeah, but none of the accounts that I've read talk about what a great move that was. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'll promise, yeah, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. And you get everything, and he waits until the exact last
Right.
moment he's given everything. That was just perfect, and they don't talk about that. So, um, I did find an article from 2015 from the University of Hawaii, "Women Warriors of Early Japan."
Okay.
And the first sentence, women warriors were not a rarity in feudal Japan. The Onimusha lived within a warring culture and with traditions of acquiring indispensable skills in martial arts, archery, and horse riding. And so they mentioned Tome Gozen, perhaps the most widely known Onimusha, the the archetypal samurai woman warrior. And then there were several others. Hangaku Gozen, Tsurishime of Omishima. So there were several. So I find that really interesting, and
Yeah.
I think that it so much of expectations and so much of expectations limit people's opportunities and abilities.
Hmm. Well,
And
and that was my kind of my point with this, as
yeah,
is International Women's Day,
yeah,
is that there there are the difference between a difficulty and a limit,
yeah,
right? So is it, we encounter this, we've talked about this before, that in our own sport, that we're not segregated in any way, not by weight, not by sex, not by anything. Everybody fights everybody.
age, height, weight,
Yep. Yeah.
gender,
None of that.
anything. Yeah,
And is it difficult if you're shorter or smaller or, you know, whatever? Yeah, sure, it is. It absolutely is. Being tall and being strong is an advantage,
hmm,
but it's not insurmountable.
right.
And so I'm just, part of this was trying to demonstrate that the women did this. Women,
Yeah.
anybody who says that women didn't, women stayed home and men went out and fought is stupid
Well,
and uneducated.
certainly uninformed. Yeah, and often unwilling. So often the uninformed are unwilling to become informed,
Right.
and that which is another topic that when you, and this is something George Carlin once talked about, that when you're when you identify with what you think, when you think your identity is your existence, then challenging what you know becomes a challenge to who you think you are.
Right.
And people are, as we've said before, will do almost anything to avoid experiencing cognitive dissonance. They'll twist themselves into all kinds of knots. And that's, yeah. And so I see that way too damn much.
Yeah.
Oh, you used to say this. Now you're saying this other thing. Yeah, but well, and they'll make excuses, and it's like, no, you have decided that this thinking this way is the core of who you are. What if you're wrong?
Right.
Can
Yeah.
you be can you become more flexible in your thinking? Um,
Can
yeah, I
can you make your identity? I wish more people would, and I'm not, nobody's immune to this, of course,
right.
but I wish more people didn't have to pin their identity to what they think they know, as you said,
Right.
right? That why can't your identity be I am willing. That is my identity. My identity is that I'm willing to refashion myself after new information is presented. That's
Yes.
that's what I'm striving to make my identity.
I think the evidence of that for me with you is the fact that you're saying that, because
No,
that's not something you always said.
well, well, no, of course not. I mean, when you're in your 20s, what you know, you've got it all figured out in your 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was having this conversation with somebody, a similar conversation with somebody at work, and saying that there's a Zen koan that I think about a lot about maturity, and it's the when I was when I was young, I believed that the mountain was just a mountain,
Right.
and then as I learned and I gained mastery, I realized that the mountain is not just a mountain. Then, as I gained more knowledge and became enlightened, I realized that the mountain is just a mountain. And I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the Zen koan type thing is like, well, it sounds so simple and so kind of dumb and obvious unless you think about it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably the sort of thing that confuses, an actor who would say that there's no point to ballet and opera. I'm referring, that's something that's been in the news.
Oh,
An actor who said, nobody watches ballet or opera anymore. There no point to it's like, really, dude? Wow.
that there's a
Talent,
level of arrogance there that
yeah, your accomplishments have gone to your head and you need to shut up because you don't know what you're talking about. So, um, yeah, he's getting a lot of pushback for that.
no good. I mean, I'm not a fan of opera, frankly. I read and ballet, same thing. I absolutely recognize the discipline
Yeah.
of it. That it's the craft is a lifelong and difficult pursuit, and I get that, and I appreciate it for that.
Mhm.
But I have never enjoyed sitting through an hour-long opera.
Um, for me, it depends on the opera.
Well, true. Some are
Um,
better than others,
yes,
certainly. But I
ballet.
can't think of opera unless without thinking of Bugs Bunny. Was my introduction to opera.
That was my first exposure to opera too, but yeah, there's some operas where the singing is the music and the voices are sublime, transportive, just
Sure.
amazing. Ballet, I will again. It depends on the quality of the ballet company,
Oh yeah,
but yeah, uh, ballet is awesome, wonderful, inspiring, unbelievable. The athleticism, the grace, the beauty, the the perseverance. I mean, ballet exemplifies a lot of the virtues.
true. And like I said, I appreciate the discipline of it, but I perhaps I am just too insensitive to get all of the beauty of it.
Okay. I yeah, I've watched ballet that just left me stunned, amazed, moved. So yeah. So um okay. So salute to women warriors, women knights of the past, present, and future, those who were, those who are, and those who will be on International Women's Day.
Yeah,
Um, may their purpose always be just, as I would wish for any knight.
Yes. So while you're out there listening to this, please like, share, follow, send us some ideas.
Yep.
We're always looking for more subject matter.
Yep. So until we see you next time, be thou
A good night
and true.